as it stands today. The judiciary is compromised. You have the legislature that is compromised. All institutions of governance are today compromised. The reason is simple. Officers working in these institutions are all intimidated. They are not sitting with their independent minds as they execute their duties. You remember that it's not very long ago, we had 3 judges from the Crown Court removed unfairly, merely for doing their job. So really, in as much as you would want me to pinpoint the area or exactly what President Hakainde Hichilema did, to bear the blame, at the end of the day, the buck stops at him. It's his government that is intimidating these judges. It's his government that is appointing party cadres to run, is it the JCC that is removing these judges? So ultimately, it's him that is making these decisions, directly or indirectly.
Right. Now, let's move on and talk about Bill 7. You are one among the many Zambians who spiritedly so fought against the Bill 7. Now that we are here, it is law. Do you feel let down? Do you feel you've let the Zambian people, considering that you are a lawmaker yourself and many others, Bill 7 that you fought so strongly is now law? Your reflection on that?
Yes, the 15th of December 2025 will be dubbed as the darkest day in our democratic history, because that is the day that Bill 7 was presented to Parliament and passed and voted for, both at second and third reading. I say so because we know very well that this was an illegal bill, a bill that the Constitutional Court had ruled against, a bill that was rejected by the Zambian people. Talk about the churches, professional bodies, citizens generally. And yet, President Hakainde Hichilema, in his wisdom, decided to ignore and disrespect a Constitutional Court judgment that ruled that the process that led to Bill 7 was illegal and was illegitimate. So it's really, really sad to have a government in power today under the UPND that can disregard a Constitutional Court judgment.
Procedurally, as a lawmaker, do you think what happened on that day is correct? Maybe some of us were perhaps looking at that being a little bit historical, that you can have second reading and third reading within the same sitting of National Assembly. Is that procedurally correct, or we were rushing against time? What can you attribute that to?
Well, Parliament is governed by standing orders, and standing orders are rules that govern the business within Parliament. So what happens is, in exceptional circumstances, as the case was, certain standing orders are suspended to allow for the next stage of a bill to be transacted within the same day. So when you look at that particular procedure, yes, that is possible within Parliament.
Right. I mean, within the context and spirit of discussing Bill 7, we noticed that some of your colleagues who actually previously had endorsed your name for the office of president in the next elections, and you had appealed to them, to their conscience, to stand down and not vote for that contentious bill. On the material day, they voted for that bill. How do you feel about that? Do you still take their endorsement of you as a person still seriously?
Well, firstly, I know you referred to the 29 MPs that had endorsed me, and out of that, 6 MPs actually voted for Constitution Amendment Bill number 7. What is important to note is that these are representatives of the people. Yes, they endorsed me, But most importantly, it must be understood that these are representatives of the people. So in as much as they went their way against the guidance that I was giving, they disappointed the whole nation, especially the people from their respective constituencies, the people that sent them to Parliament to come and represent them. I think that should be emphasized, that these are representatives of the people that went against the aspirations and wishes of the Zambian people generally, and specifically the people from their constituencies that sent them to Parliament.
Right. So you have no ill feelings about what transpired yourself as an individual?
I was very disappointed, like every other Zambian, especially given that I put in a lot of effort. That week, Kennedy, if you remember, we actually set up a mini parliament, so to speak, at our offices, where we allowed these members of parliament to come and speak against Bill 7. We had discussions, and they agreed with the Oasis Forum, they agreed with the Zambian people that the process leading to Bill 7 was illegal, it was illegitimate, and on account of the Concord judgment, it was now and void. So I was obviously very disappointed. I still remain very disappointed with the action.
Let's talk to where you're coming from, the party that sponsored you into Parliament, that's the Patriotic Front. We seem to be facing a situation, you have camps emerging almost on a daily basis of leaders wanting to lead and people building around this particular leader. There is yourself, you have Makebi Zulu, you have Honorable Given Luwinda there, and perhaps others that we may not have enough time to quantify. Are we likely to see an end to this kind of cannibalization within the party that should be coming together?
There has to be an end to it. There has to be an end to it sooner than later. The Zambian people out there are looking at the opposition led by the Patriotic Front as the alternative government. The Zambian people have made up their minds that the UPND has got to go. So what we have differences. Differences in political parties are normal, especially when there's contestation. We've applied, I'm one of those that has applied to stand for party presidency. Of course, many others have done the same. So when you look at these divisions, it's very important to interrogate what may be causing these tensions and divisions within the party. If you've tracked the happenings within the party, you will agree with me that the delayed convention, the general conference that should have been held first, I think, in 2022, 2-3 years later, still not been held. Naturally, the contestation has raised some tension, as expected. So, going forward, if you ask me whether we're going to see the end to this, we have to see the end to this. And we are going to see the end to this the moment the convention is held. We really have no choice. Personally, as a person that is contesting in this, I want to say this and put it on record, that I would like to see an end to these squabbles. I would like to see an end to this tension.
It's very interesting that you say that you're looking forward to this convention being held. On a Christmas day like this, can you give the Zambian people an assurance that clearly you as PF will at some point put aside your personal interests and focus on building a collective vision and choose one leader? And I say this because a few days back, and this you must be aware, some of your colleagues somewhere said, you don't have an acting president, you have a substantive president. And almost as if they are suggesting there must be suspension of the possibility of a convention.
Well, I'll not take responsibility for the misreading of the Constitution by some of our members. The PF president is only chosen at a convention. That is very clear in the PF constitution. The black text is very clear. It cannot be interpreted any other way. So if others have misread that, I don't think I would want to comment on that. So what is important, Kenneth, there is that you don't start by saying, can we come together and go to the convention? What is creating the confusion is the delayed convention. All we need is a credible process, an accountable process to the convention. Once the convention is held, a leader will be elected. Once a leader is elected, all this confusion will come down.
Watching you, you seem to be commanding some grassroots support. There is some sort of crowd building around you wherever you go. If anything we watch on social media is something we could go by. But then one also wonders why there is this level of pushback from some of the senior colleagues within the party not to throw their weight behind you. Is it because you are considered a threat, or what could be informing that?
Kennedy, you're right when you say that I enjoy some grassroots, a lot of grassroots support. That is very true. And because these are the people that I speak for. The grassroots support that you refer to is both within the PF and outside. If you've observed the man of campaign and the message that I'm taking to the people, I am very focused on the challenges the poor Zambians are facing, the vulnerable in society, the weak in society, the youths, the workers. These are the people that I speak for. And I believe the challenges that we face as a political party should not be the reason why we should look away from the challenges the Zambian people that are facing. There may be a few people that do not support me. I don't think that should be a major concern on my part, especially that I'm not standing alone. I'm not unopposed in this particular contest. There are others that would have opted to throw their support to other members. So my focus really is I'm looking at the plight of the youths. I'm looking at the plight of workers, be it in the mines and in many other sectors. I'm looking at the plight of farmers, and these are things that I continue talking about. I have not abandoned my responsibility as a national leader. Firstly, I'm a member of parliament, and as a leader, I should be concerned that the farmers are not paid today. I should go out there and speak to this particular challenge that the farmers are facing. If the workers at Mopani are resigning, are going on voluntary separation every other day, and yet this is a mine that recently had some investors purportedly coming in with some new investment, then you have workers going on voluntary separation. We should be concerned. We are in a country with high levels of unemployment. Why should those that are in employment opt to leave employment in an area where they are unlikely to find a new job? So those are the people that I'm speaking for. I'm looking at the youths that had earlier signed a social contract with President Hakainde Hichilema on mining, where they were promised licenses and, of course, some support in terms of equipment and facilitating for aggregators to come and uplift whatever they were producing. So I have really thrown my weight around these issues that affect the poor Zambians, and maybe that is why the grassroots support that you referred to is something that I'm currently enjoying.
You're seeking national office at the very highest, position as president next year, and that goes and calls for credibility and public trust. I'd like for you to take this moment to demystify certain things that we are picking up, be it on social media, there's a lot of chatter, maybe purely because you're taking this particular trajectory of wanting to become Republican president. As an observer reading social media, it would appear to me that there seems to be either a deliberate or genuine smear campaign against your person. And perhaps I would like for you to deal with any sort of rumors that might dent your aspiration as Republican president. There are people insinuating that you could actually be in bed or working with the current administration. Have you been bullied privately? Have you been, coerced? Have you been intimidated in any way? Where is this coming from to think that people would imagine that you are from PF, former leader of opposition in the House, a member of Parliament for the people of Mporokoso, and others are thinking that you actually could be working with the UPND to destabilize the PF?
I'll be very categorical and I'll be very clear. I have never been bullied privately. I have never been intimidated. I've never been coerced by the UPND. And there's never been a reason for me to compromise my integrity and values to engage with the UPND. I want to be very clear, Kennedy. From the time we lost power, I have only seen President Hakainde Hichilema when it comes to address the House. I have never met him outside Parliament.
Or his agents?
Not even his agents. Not even a phone call. Not even a note. I've not even asked for any favor from the UPND. So there's never been a reason why I should be intimidated. I've got nothing to hide. There's no reason why I should allow myself to be coerced. No reason at all. So I must make it very clear to those that may come up and peddle rumors that, he's compromised, he's a project. I am not a project of the UPND. I've never been a project of the UPND. And for your information, Kennedy, projects of the UPND are well known. For instance, take members of Parliament who are compromised. Take my profile from 2021. Has there been any time that any Zambian can doubt me when it comes to providing checks and balances? When I bring out the ills, the inconsistencies, the injustices by President Hakainde Hichilema. Those that are compromised, if you look at them and their performance in Parliament, their performance in the media is very clear. I am not one of those. I have never been one of those. So you can challenge anybody that comes to you and suggest that BM8 could be a project. Any such rumor should be dismissed with the contempt that it deserves. I remain clean in my dealings, and that is the reason why, even on my trajectory to campaign for presidency of the party and later Republican president, I have no fear. There is nothing to fear. I have no hesitation. There is no need for me to go down and make private phone calls, meet somebody and compromise. I will represent the Zambian people without fear or favor.
Let's go back to your call as a member of Parliament, but now I'd like for you to speak as a collective. I mean, previously you've represented members of Parliament as leader of opposition. Do you think in the past 4 years you've done well as a collective to represent your respective constituencies? And I say this because this is not the first time that you are serving as a member of Parliament. There's history and experience, you can refer back to. If you think you haven't done well in this particular stretch, could you perhaps speak to some of the hindrances and challenges that you could have faced as Parliament that could have maybe hindered your full potential to serve your respective constituencies? And I'm not speaking to you as an individual, but as a collective. Thank you.
I think in responding to that, we will look at 4 different heads. what Parliament is, the raison d'etre of Parliament. Number one, provide checks and balances. Number two is to enact laws. Number three, provide oversight. And number four, approve the budget. Let's start with maybe enacting laws. Parliament just passed Constitutional Amendment Bill number 7. So clearly there is a no-no. That's a zero. The performance there has been poor. We disappointed the Zambian people. The Zambian people are very angry. The Zambian people are upset with us as parliamentarians. They are upset with Parliament for being compromised, abdicating the role of legislators, our roles as legislators, and pass a bad law like Constitutional Amendment Bill number 7. When you look at maybe, say, checks and balances, if Parliament discharged its functions diligently, we would not have farmers not paid for 8 months. Not at all. We would not have load shedding of up to 19 hours. I want to tell you, Kennedy, that I was in Ghana sometime last year. When we were there, the Committee of Parliament, Committee on Government Assurances, had accosted the Minister of Energy, who had earlier promised to reduce load shedding to 2 hours. Load shedding was going up to 4 hours. The committee forced the Minister of Energy to resign live on TV. That is what you call checks and balances.
Did the minister resign?
He did. He resigned. They prevailed on him until he resigned. So if we have up to 15 or 20 hours of load shedding, and in some cases, some areas going for days without power, and we're there as a parliament, you can't surely say we have performed well. If Parliament was discharging its functions with diligence, when the UPND came into power, they found 1.5 million tons of maize and exported that maize. What resulted was a food crisis. You can't surely say we're discharging our functions. So you go to oversight. You have institutions like FIC. Previously, Kennedy, if you remember, President Hakainde Hichilema used to get his information from the FIC reports. I remember at one time, the report contained a sum of 2 billion kwacha to account for suspicious transactions. Arising from that, President Hakainde Hichilema went all over radio stations and started calling all of us thieves, criminals, because there were suspicious transactions for 2 billion kwacha. The past 4 years, Kennedy, there's been $3.5 billion in suspicious transactions under FIC. There's been 60 billion kwacha suspicious transactions in FIC. There's been 13.5 billion kwacha. There's been 5.8 billion kwacha. If you look at all these figures put together, I don't think Zambia has had any report of suspicious transactions from 1964 to 2021 amounting to what we've had under the UPND.
You failed to hold them accountable.
Yes, as Parliament, we failed to hold them accountable. People are supposed to be fired. People are supposed to lose their jobs. President Hakainde Hichilema himself promised to name and shame. Where are the people? There are reports sitting at SEC, as I speak to you, of 8 to 10 ministers that were reported some 2-3 years ago. There's been nothing done. We have not heard any report of them appearing before courts of law or being called for questioning. So where is Parliament? We are picking this information from all those reports that are submitted to Parliament, including FIC report. So if Parliament was doing its job, first of all, we would have caused SEC to prosecute the ministers that were caught before.
Help me understand, and the Zambian people, if you keep saying if Parliament was doing its job, where is the problem? Why isn't Parliament doing its job?
If you follow parliamentary proceedings, Kennedy, you'll agree with me that especially my members of parliament from the opposition, there's been no parliamentary democracy. What you have are presiding officers participating in parliamentary debates, and in some cases, even answering questions for and on behalf of ministers. So you have a compromised parliament, and I have no apologies to make. To confirm that, you saw what happened to the Speaker on the 15th of December 2025, to show that there is no separation of powers. The Speaker, who is supposed to be an umpire, a neutral person, started dancing after the passing of Bill 7. So even when people doubted us previously, when we talked about there not being separation between the executive and the legislature, everybody saw that. The Speaker left her seat without bowing. It has never happened in the history of this country. The Speaker has to bow to members of parliament on both sides before she vacates her seat. She left her seat, did not bow before the members, and broke into some unusual dance on the floor of the House. You know, that's an abomination. It's not supposed to happen on the floor of parliament. So to come back to your question, you must understand that we have a compromised parliament. Because we have a compromised parliament, the presiding officers take offense when difficult questions are put to the executive. And sometimes they've taken it upon themselves to respond to those questions. That is why today, SCC can shield the criminals serving under President Hakainde Hichilema's government today. The corruption cases that we're picking from FIC reports are all defended and protected by presiding officers. We have vibrant members of parliament. You have seen our young parliamentarians. They've come up, they ask very difficult and uncomfortable questions to the executive, but they never get to be responded to because the executive is protected by the presiding officers. It's a very sad situation.
Very sad situation indeed, as you put it. Now, let's look at this outside of Parliament. Now, if you were to provide checks and balances on a normal good day in a functional democracy, looking back at 4 years of the UPND, in the spirit of providing checks and balances, what's your reflection about their performances against their own promises in 2021?
Bismo. The performance of the UPND has been very poor. And I think to fairly judge them, I've already given my view on their poor performance. But maybe you can go through and use their own scoreboard. What did they say about the energy sector? They said they're going to end load shedding. What did they say about the cost of living? They talked about reducing prices of milli meal from 130 to 50 kwacha, reducing the cost of fuel from 17 kwacha to 10 kwacha and 12 kwacha, reducing the cost of fertilizers from 650 to 250. Those are some of the promises that they made. President Hakainde Hichilema talked about fighting corruption. So when you look at just the 3 examples that I've given, he talked about ending load shedding. Have they ended load shedding? They gave excuses some 2 years ago on that partial drought. President Hakainde Hichilema went all over the world to convince the world that this was the worst drought in the history of Zambia. A partial drought cannot be the worst drought because we've had a countrywide drought before. The drought we experienced was not there in Northern Province. It was not there in the northern parts of the country. So what many Zambians should appreciate today is that we're in this energy crisis because we have traders in government. We have businessmen in government that will prioritize business over and above the challenges of the poor Zambians. If you have a government that prioritizes business and abandons the suffering of the Zambian people, the poor Zambians, the result is what we have today. So simply put, when they got into government, the same way they got excited with the export of maize, that found so much maize, they also got excited with the export of power. The way you regulate water levels, you're actually supposed to do what we call an integrated multi-sectoral approach. So the Ministry of Energy does not exist in isolation. When they want to come up with some policy decisions, they should also consult the Ministry of Environment, for instance, to find out what the weather patterns, what the climate looks like in the years ahead. We knew very well that almost every 4 years we experience a drought. Had President Hakainde Hichilema and his government been patient, they would have known that we actually expected to have a drought, last year and the other year. They would have then managed the power generation at our major generation capacity at Kariba. But when they got there, they realized power could be sold to the neighboring countries at a premium.
When you say we have a government of traders and businessmen, and they would argue that we are selling power because we need to generate, resources for the country, how do you hold that against them if they are raising revenue for the nation? I just want you to amplify your thought on that.
Yeah, look, we have to be realistic. Suddenly, there's this big opportunity. We have a drought on one end, we have load shedding on one end, and suddenly there's some emergency of power traders. Some business that we, of course, knew about, but you did not expect it to come at the time that we're experiencing load shedding. Somehow these middlemen were finding power to sell when an average welder, when an average saloon, a restaurant, and a carpenter did not have power. So what it is that when our colleagues came in, the first priority was to make money. They were in a hurry to make money. Some of these leaders were, boasting out there. They were the richest and had so much money, and when in fact not. We knew they had no money. You also knew they had no money. So when they got into power, it was time to make money. And because it was time to make money, they looked at export of maize. At the time they were exporting maize, they didn't think about the Zambian people. We ended up in a food crisis. Meal prices started going up. When they got into power and they found that Lake Kariba was full, they saw an opportunity. If they had been prudent, if they listened to technocrats and experts within the government circles, they would have been advised that they needed to slow down on generation. We would have started with load shedding for even up to 1 hour, say from 2021, 2022, 2023. Today, maybe at most would have been having load shedding for 3 hours, would have preserved the water. Now, they went on rampage to export power because they had formed these companies, the middlemen, that were now trading in power. That's where the problem is.
So the resources were not going to the country, that's what you are saying. We are going to individuals?
Of course, the individuals in between, who are exporting power at a premium. They're making profits. ZESCO, the government would get their bit, but the primary motivation is for this middleman to sell power at a premium and pocket the profit.
Right. Now, earlier I heard you talk about farmers who have not been paid. Yesterday, the Zambia Statistical Agency announced an economic growth of 3.6% this year. And also we have heard that government has already secured some $5 million or so through commercial banks to pay the farmers. I mean, you are a member of parliament, you're close to power. Why are the farmers not being paid if money has been secured, if the economy is growing? Where is the problem?
Don't ever believe anything the EPND says. 2 years ago, they had projected the economic growth at 4.5%. Halfway through, they reduced it to 2.5%. The IMF came in and said actually it was at 1.2%. I want you to hear that. 4.5 was the projection. Along the way, they adjusted it to 2.5. And the IMF just came and said, no, it's actually at 1.2. So they're in the habit of throwing figures around, just to appease their friends and a few other people that they may want to come and invest in this country. Two, they tell you that money is sitting with the banks. And yet the farmers have been sleeping on queues, waiting to access this money.
And it's rain season.
It's high time we got the truth. I want to take this opportunity to challenge the Bankers Association of Zambia to come out clean. Is it their members, commercial banks that are holding on to the money? Is it the commercial banks that are allowing the situation that we are seeing where people are spending nights in corridors waiting to access money from the banks? Because as far as the government spokesman is concerned, government spokesperson, the money has been given to the banks, but this is going to 2 weeks. I think this is the longest wait for a transfer for a money which is sitting in a bank. I think this is the longest anyone can wait to access their money which is sitting in the bank. So I think it's time that we stop playing games. We're dealing with people's lives. These are poor people, Kennedy. We all must be concerned. Some of these people have not even participated in this year's agricultural season because their money has not been paid. And yet, people are making one press briefing after the other. Now they are telling us that it's the banks that are not giving money to the farmers. So the Bankers Association of Zambia cannot keep quiet. They cannot remain quiet. We want to challenge them. I want to challenge them to come out clean and tell the Zambian people that their members, the commercial banks, have been holding on to this money, have been depriving the farmers of their money deliberately amidst all the sufferings that they're going through. Somebody has to account. Somebody has to tell the truth.
You reckon there's some lies being told along the way?
Well, one thing you know for sure, Kennedy, is that the UPND always tells lies. But I also expect the Bankers Association to come out clean on what has been said about the commercial banks. Yeah, but this is very serious. I think what is clear, what we should get from there, Kennedy, is that government should stop pretending. Government has no money. This is a fact. Government has no money. They are throwing figures around, the reserves at 5.2 billion and all that. But all that for what if you can't even pay farmers? Why should people go out there and celebrate that the reserves they've now hit 5.2 billion if you can't even pay farmers?
We're going towards the end of our discussion, but I need to bring the point home that you, as a member of parliament for the good people from Porokoso, you preside over an increased quantum of CDF, and CDF has been, given as the, sort of flagship project of the UPND administration since they came into power. They've continuously, increased this quantum. But then we keep hearing complaints of accessibility of these funds. Maybe you can give us a very practical example, given that you have a constituency that has this quantum of CDF allocated to. How have you utilized it? Have you had any challenges accessing it within your constituencies? And if that's the case, what would be the pain points? What is causing all of these challenges that we keep hearing about as far as access to CDF is concerned?
Yes, Kennedy, you must understand that this CDF story is actually a hoax.
You call it a hoax?
It's a hoax, yeah. And I'll tell you why. They enhanced CDF and it's just a hoax. So let's put everything in context. 4 years under the PF, between 2016 and 2020, let's isolate the 4 years since they haven't completed the 5 years. The total budgets approved under the PF was 470 billion total. 4 years under the UPND, they approved 890, close to 900 billion. Double the amount. I want you to look at the two budgets in 4 years. Out of the 900 billion under the UPND, only 19 billion accounts for CDF. I want you to take a lot of interest in this. So we're talking about 900 billion total budgets in 4 years, and only 19 billion accounts for CDF. Enhanced CDF, by the way. And we want to see miracles out of the 19 billion. Why isn't anybody giving us reports on the 880 billion? That's a starting point. CDF Kennedy only accounts for 2.3% of the budget, at most 2.5%. So it doesn't matter how well you utilize the CDF. Even I would give you an A plus for utilizing the CDF, but you'd have gotten an A plus on a 2.5 component of the budget. The impact is dismal. So if the UPND are telling us CDF is a flagship, that, no wonder we're having all these problems. So what we have, there's a lot of excitement around the CDF. But you must know, Kennedy, today, that even the disbursement of the CDF, we are now in December. I think the constituencies are only receiving their last half of that amount maybe this month. So from January, the amounts which are supposed to be given as early as between January and March for the implementation of the projects are actually being given now. Now I'm not even sure whether it was the 2025 CDF or the 2024. So there's a lot of talk by the UPND, but very little action. If 40 million CDF that is provided for under enhanced CDF was given and restricted to the CDF component, and by that I mean the CDF that is presided over by the local authorities and the MP, whilst government is attending to other projects by central government, you will not be receiving the complaints. What people don't know is that all the attention, because of the many adverts and marketing of CDF, the people across the country believe CDF should tackle all the challenges that they have.
Who is supposed to do the monitoring and evaluation? Who is supposed to paint the right picture of, because there's a narrative that this is what we are doing. And if things don't work, they point to the members of parliament. Your member of parliament is not working. That's why, as we've released CDF, if there are no projects, it's not central government. Who is supposed to put the ducks in a row so that people can have a clear picture and visibility that, as you called, this is a hoax?
I've looked at this from two angles. I want to be very clear. I'll go very slowly. I've looked at a scenario where CDF is performing, and we give it an A+. Before we come to the part where there are challenges, let's look at the area where CDF is performing. 40 million kwacha. An average water project, an average water and sanitation project at district level costs 100 million kwacha. We did one in Kaputa. I think Kaputa was 160 million. It was about 200 million in Imbala, a similar amount in... so an average is 100 million, slightly more. So I want to give you must understand this. Let's say a CDF is properly managed. So it will take 2 years, okay, of CDF to come up with an average water reticulation project. By that we mean no desks, no bursary, nothing, but just a water project. So the point that I'm trying to drive home, even in cases where CDF has been properly implemented, it is too small to make an impact. Remember, CDF is just supposed to be supplementary to the other developmental projects that the government is bringing to the district. But under the UPND, CDF is the only program that they have. So the frustration that you're getting on the ground, even in cases where it's properly implemented, is that it's not enough to create an impact.
So from 40 million, you have to do your roads, your hospitals, your schools.
And even buy ambulances. You also buy police land cruisers. Okay? So the money that is left for implementation of projects is actually just 17 million kwacha.
So do we need the Ministry of Infrastructure in that case?
Well, we under a proper government, yes. Okay.
I'm talking about the current administration.
No.
If
what have they done?
So what money is allocated to that ministry?
What have they done, Kennedy? Ministry of Infrastructure, my brother Milupi Charles, okay? The only project they want to refer to the dual carriageway, that's under PPP. What projects have they done at Ministry of Infrastructure? He will be going out of office in the next 5 months. What will he tell the Zambian people and his fellow engineers that he did when he was in office? One project. We challenge them, just give us one project that you've done under infrastructure. You know? So, I mean, these are people who came into government without knowing what they really wanted. They spent 23 years just opposing and fighting a sitting government. They did not have anything planned. If you compare the Minister of Infrastructure in the past, because there was a plan in place. The plan was to provide backbone infrastructure across the country. So key trunk roads connecting provinces had to be developed. Roads connecting districts had to be developed. So you saw a structured approach in bringing out this infrastructure. In their case, it's been random or simply not there. The Minister of Infrastructure under Charles Milupi has done absolutely nothing.
Let's go back to your trajectory of running across the country. You said you opted to be going to the people. And as you are going to the people, and you know, as I do, that very soon Parliament would be closing, and if you don't campaign now, you will have no time to campaign. What sentiments are you picking on the ground from the people? What are they communicating with 2026 in mind? Are they happy that they should continue with the UPND? Do they want change? Do they want you as the as the new leader? What is it that they are picking? And if you were to speak objectively,
the Zambian people can't wait for a change of government. They cannot wait for a change of government. Zambians are stressed. Zambians at all levels. I talk about professionals, civil servants, businessmen, miners, youths. Kennedy, when you go to the Copper Belt, for instance, it's a very big constituency. There's a very big problem there. The suppliers and contractors are very stressed because there's no business for them. President Hakainde Hichilema and his friend Musokotwane always go out to the media to talk about the billions of dollars that are coming in form of investment. The question that you and I should ask, what is the net benefit to the Zambian people? How much of that money will end up with the Zambian businessmen on the Copper Belt? We've been pushing an agenda on local content, for instance, where there must be some guaranteed business to the Zambian people.
And that has been signed into law.
It's been signed into law, but what have we seen so far? Look, like I said, Kennedy, you've got to be very careful with the EPND. They're very good at playing to the gallery. They're very good at grandstanding and showing that they're doing something. What is supposed to happen? Or maybe they did something they did not even understand, because we are the ones that have been pushing that. So our quest was very clear. We're saying, we're estimating there could be $5 billion worth of business out there in terms of mine supply and contracts. If we got 40% protected for Zambian people, there's $2 billion out there. The complexion of the Copper Belt will change immediately. So what is supposed to happen? There's supposed to be some return system of some sort. The mining houses are supposed to be reporting what business they've conducted in a particular month and how many Zambian businesses took part, what amounts, and so on and so forth. So that clearly there's some monitoring. You can't just leave it. Secondly, there is supposed to be an aspect of checking against fronting. Because what these businesses will simply do, they'll get their workers and register them pretending these are Zambian businesses. So there should be a time when a meeting of directors or a meeting of shareholders is called, so that there's some interaction with the owners of the company. Because this is about the Zambian people, Kennedy. Those mine suppliers and contractors are also employers. The levels of unemployment on the Copper Belt is so high. If you look at how many youths are unemployed on the Copper Belt. So they believed that Bali, as they called him then, when Bali comes in, he's going to create employment. So the youths right now on the Copper Belt are stranded. The youths that were promised licenses, the youths that were promised training, and these are gold miners, these are Jerabos. President said they will no longer be Jerabos, they'll be small scale miners, are actually stranded. And yet, with one measure, just one measure, Kennedy, the measure on local content can resolve all those problems on the Copper Belt. A one-pager okay, but strictly implemented to ensure that there are no games played by the mine owners.
As we come to the end of our discussion, we've been looking at defining the 2026 trajectory. What's your vision as Brian Mundubile for Zambia? Do you just want to run for president for the sake of making a name? I was the 8th president of Zambia. What vision should the Zambians expect from you?
So the starting point, Kennedy, is that as Brian Mundubile, I love Zambia and I love Zambians. So the problem statement now, what is obtaining in the country, we have very high poverty levels. So my vision is to start by tackling these high poverty levels. And I'll tackle these high poverty levels using the natural resources that God gave us. So we'll run through very quickly. We look at sectors like agriculture. We look at the tourism sector. We'll look at the mining sector. I've just explained very quickly how in tackling poverty, you don't tackle poverty by making pronouncements and press briefings. You've got to be very clear. You've got to be very structured. You can only fight poverty through employment creation. You've got to create sustainable employment in order to fight poverty. Now, to create employment, you've got to industrialize. To be able to industrialize, you've got to invest. That is why the starting point was, with the previous government, was to create backbone infrastructure. The idea there, Kennedy, was that if we're talking about Kasaba Bay, the potential at Kasaba Bay, it could not be realized without investments. Investments in airport infrastructure, in roads. Once that is done, the private sector will come in and industrialize. When they industrialize, they will create employment and fight poverty. In terms of agriculture, and this is the vision that I'm rolling out, you were talking about investing in backbone infrastructure in the areas of energy, in the areas of road, in the areas of communication. So we already isolated 10 areas across the country as farming blocks. So these are production areas where you looked at value addition in addition to mainstream agriculture. So you have anchor farmers coming in these areas. They bring on board outgrower schemes. They employ people in their thousands. And along the way, begin to do value addition. Remember, the vision is to fight poverty. Fight poverty using employment creation. Employment creation through industrialization. Industrialization through investments. So when you run through the sectors, the policies, whether it's a local content, the local content policy on the Copper Belt, strictly implemented, the Zambians, men and women on the Copper Belt, will be able to set up industries. Naturally, just using that policy, because they will have enough business, to the mines, they will have enough money to be able to industrialize and create employment. Our youths on the Copper Belt will no longer be languishing on the streets or doing dangerous mining, as it were. So you pick key sectors like tourism, mining, and agriculture. These are sufficient to look after us as a country. We can reduce the kneeling with the begging bowl before the IMF and the World Bank. If a proper leadership is put in place, when we come in and provide proper leadership, we should be able to be self-sustaining given what we have already.
Honorable Brian Mundubile, 2026 aspiring candidate, thank you for making an appearance on State of the Nation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We can only wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you, Kenneth. It's a pleasure.
You. There you are there, dear viewers. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been talking to the aspiring candidate from the Patriotic Front, Honorable Brian Mundubile, and he has been laying out his vision as well as looking at